October 2021 tarehe 22 mwezi wa 10 mwaka 2021. Kama kawaida Sheria Wiki Hii, Friday of 22nd October 2021. Karibu sana. I request that when you join in, please like. When you like, we get to know that you're watching us, and after you like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. This is a tackle and it begins now. Leo tuko na mheshimiwa. Last time we had invited her for a show on Siasa Wednesday, but she was not able to make it because she was unwell. But today she's here with us. GLADYS SHOLLEI, GLADYS boss SHOLLEI, has joined us this morning to be able to break down the political and the legal happenings of the week. Ndio tuweze kuelewa zaidi mambo yanakuwa vipi kwenye Sheria Wiki. Daktari Ekuru Okota yuko na sisi baada kwa pale South Sudan. Anajaribu kutengeza katiba ya serikali ya South Sudan. Kwa hivyo ataweza kujumuika na sisi wiki inayokuja, lakini leo tuko na mheshimiwa GLADYS B SHOLLEI. Nataka kutuambia pia, unajua alikuwa wakati mwingine alikuwa pale kwenye judiciary. Atatuambia pia mambo ya judiciary ni vipi. This is the first government that keep losing cases every day. Looks like it's a song. It's a tune after tune, a track after track. One case lost, the next day they're losing another one. So we want to know as well, is it that the government is a rogue government, or is it that we have a judiciary that is so vindictive? Because we have a government that has an history with this judiciary. In 2017, if you can remember, when the elections were nullified, the president said in very particular terms that we were going to revisit. And since then, it seems that the relationship between the judiciary and the government has continued to deteriorate at worst levels. Yesterday, the judiciary has directed the president, or the courts have directed the president to swear in to appoint the 6 remaining judges within 14 days. Otherwise, if it doesn't do that, then the judges will be deemed fit to resume office, and the JSC should go ahead and swear them in. So you're going to see what the drama is going to unfold as we move on. I've also seen Kenya Power is on the loggerheads with its consumers. An hotel has taken Kenya Power to court for a bill of, I think, 2.something million. For an hotel that always has a bill of 26,000 Kenyan shillings every month. So we're going to look at it as well. As we even know, we're planning about the reforms at Kenya Power, which is a public listed company, and the government has said it's going to take over its operation and make it a government project. All right. If you have any legal question as well that you would want to ask and share, please send it to us. Also, the president during Mashujaa Day also spoke out in very strong and particular terms that he was not going to surrender an inch or even take an inch more from the maritime dispute that is happening between Kenya and Somalia. The ICJ made a ruling and gave us, I don't know myself, sijui mambo ya maritime, lakini mheshimiwa atatuambia inakuaje, because Tanzania apparently has a different agreement with Kenya. Somalia was supposed to have a different borderline with Kenya as well. Kenya has never entered into a discussion or a negotiation with Somalia, but it has entered into a negotiation with Tanzania. And they agreed on a maritime border. Tanzania as well, I think, has entered into an organization with Mozambique. And you can see the borders are different. So you're going to look at those maritime borders. And also, what are the consequences? If we proceed and say, we are not surrendering an inch, and we don't want an inch from you, what are the consequences for Kenya, especially in a world that we rely on diplomacy? More and such are coming up shortly. Lakini kama kawaida ambayo cha mbele za Mungu tuomba, alafu kirudi na kuja kuwapa salamu zenu wangwana kidogo, alafu tulipe madeni, alafu basi tukija tunaingia kwenye mazungumzo haraka upesi. Mighty Father, we come before you this morning. We worship you, glorify your name. Thank you for another opportunity to be alive. We thank you for this broadcast. We thank you for the tagless. We thank you for our guest. As we enter into this discussion, may it edify the fabric of this country. For we pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Ernest Lagat, good morning. Good morning to you, sir. Paul Kibiego, good morning. Jackson James Ngoy, good morning. Amon Biot, good morning. Mateo K.A., good morning. Amon, good morning. Sebastian, good morning. GK Maigong, good morning. Lesialo Leteyan, watching from Kajiado, asante sana. Arap Mayo, John Akip, good morning from JKI. Jane Mumbi, good morning to you, Jane. Keep quiet, keep good morning, Mr. GK, watching from Eldoret. Sunday, Kenneth Marende, watching from Kericho County, good morning. Steven Sorofit, Jera say hi to my woman rep on the GLADYS B SHOLLEI. Reminder that she is of late losing touch with the ground. Atatuambia sijui ground gani, ndio ground ni mingi Kenya. Dike Cheboy, good morning sir. Uliza SHOLLEI which position is she up to in 2022. Atatuambia, lakini nilisikia fununu anasema she is defending her seat. I don't know. She'll tell us what plans she has. At some point nilikuwa nasikia anataka governor nikapiga hata mimi debe kidogo. Kidogo nikasikia ni kama mambo yamegeuka kidogo. Francisco Lawrence Kian Kiblagat watching from Isli. Francisco Lenantiri watching from Nanyuki. Tackle by tackle Ole Nantiri Asla 002. Asante sana. Cyrus Limo, good morning to you sir. Arable Mosin Gishuki kama usalamu kibao GB. Good morning to you Anthony Rungu. Good morning. Joel Arama Chairman Diaspora Edition. Good morning. Good morning to you Kenneth Marende. Good morning. Sylvie Kip. Good morning. Gerald Benja V. Jace. Good morning. Arieba Job. Good morning. Bito. Good morning to you. Rona Betwell. Good morning. Sasa Salimia Weshimiwa. Briton Award. Good morning. Good job. Asante sana ndugu yangu. Obadia Karanja. Good morning. GB. Good morning to you. Kimutai Peter watching from Naro. Good morning. Jonathan Langat. Good morning watching from Bomet County. Honorable Josiah Rotuk. Good morning. Christopher Togom. Good morning. Wacha niangalie wangwana wa YouTube kidogo. Sijui kama wameweza kuamka tayari. Tuambie kunaendaje pale. Okay. All right. Titus Kibos, good morning watching from Eldoret, Kapsoya, Gotea, my women rep na umsho atembe. Haya, asante. Weshimiwa atawatembelea hivi karibuni. Nitaambia ni wapi hapo mnataka atembe. Chumba na kuona Francis Ngosose na kuona Kilby Boyd, good morning from your side. Jera Bitok, how are you? I've been doing watching from Vitafield United, always on the show. Asante sana watu wa United States and also Australia. It's always a pleasure to have you. And the guys on the UK as well. The guys in the UK we really appreciate. It's always a pleasure to have you. The guys from diaspora, you make this show. And I tell you this, without you the Takal could never be. So thank you so much for being part of the discussion that affect your nation and for being patriotic enough to stay awake at this time of the night wherever you are to ensure that you are part of this discussion. Haya, tulipe madeni haraka upesi ndio tuweze kulipa mishahara na kupata kahawa. Tutaanza na wangwana wetu wa Maridadi Motors. Maridadi Motors inakupa nafasi ya kuweza kuagiza gari kwa bei nafuu zaidi. Juzi tulikuwa pale wiki iliyopita Jumatatu, kumbe ni wiki this Monday we were there and we talked about the Maridadi Driving Academy that gives you an opportunity to be the best driver in town. So if you want to enroll to be a driver, ama kama uko na mtoto ambaye maliza shule anataka kuwa dereva, mpeleke pale Maridadi Driving Academy, anaweza kupata maagizo instructions from the best instructors in town who are certified by NTSA. Pia inakupa nafasi ya kuweza kuagiza gari kwa bei nafuu zaidi. And when you import directly with Maridadi Motors, you get to save up to 300,000 Kenyan shillings. Ukiimport gari na Maridadi Motors unaweza kusave 300,000 Kenyan shillings. Inakupa nafasi pia kuweza kufanya investment. If you have some money that is lying somewhere, you can invest in Maridadi Motors import to sell model where you get 1 up to 15% on your investment. Maridadi Motors as well gives you an opportunity to save for two reasons. If you are saving for a unit, kama unataka gari, unaweza kusave asilimia 50 ama 50% of the value of the car. Alafu gari unaweza kuendesha mdogo ukilipa hiyo balance nyingine ya asilimia 50. Hiyo ni Maridadi Motorcycle. Hakuna nafasi nyingine ambayo unaweza kupata ya kuweza kumiliki gari kwa njia rahisi zaidi. If you also building, watu wangu wa Rexe wanakupa nafasi ya kuweza kujenga nyumba yako kwa njia shwari zaidi. Nilikwambia hivi, when you're building, your roof is your home's legacy. You don't do your roof twice. So ensure that you do it once and you do it right. Rexe Roofing inakupa product safi sana. That is quality roofing shingles na pia stone coated tiles. And you're also building a flat roof, or you want to waterproof your floor or your flat roof, you can you can actually buy from Rexe Roofing waterproofing materials. And this October we are extending our customer service week for a whole month, and we are giving you 10% discounts on all waterproofing materials, 10% discounts on all waterproofing solutions from Rexe Roofing. Na pia unaweza kupata pia pale UPVC water harvesting gutters kutoka Rexe Roofing. Rexe Roofing roofs your wall. Visit Rexe Roofing, www.rexeroofing.com. Anaweza kupiga simu kwenye nambari iliyo kwenye screen yako kwa njia shwari zaidi. Pia ukifika pale Eldoret, na unaona kidogo ni kama hii watu wameanza kuniita Gerald wa mashati. Hii mashati inatoka D-Square. D-Square where pale Eldoret, Ketia building 4th floor. Kimbia pale uambie Dan nimekutuma. Na nitakupa discount yako pia. Ya hadi asilimia 20. Up to 20% discount. Ukienda pale useme ya kwamba umetumwa na Gerald Bitok, D-Square uweze kungara zaidi. Nimeona ndugu yangu pale ako America pia wa Diaspora Edition, Joel Kips ako na harusi inakuja na D-Square wamesema kwamba watamngarisha kwa njia shwari zaidi. Kwa hivyo Joel Arama, jipange na suti yako. Haya, wale wangwana wengine ambao wamefika tafadhali wasukume kwenye screen kwa sababu ya wakati. Mheshimiwa, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you, General. Thank you for inviting me.
I can see umepona kabisa.
Yes, because of my voice.
What did happen?
I talk too much, I think.
Where do you talk?
I talk for a living.
Others you want?
You're very well, thank you.
Okay. Say hi to these Kenyans. This is your camera.
Yes.
So maybe you can,
okay.
you
Good
can
morning,
say hello to these
Kenyans,
tacklers.
and those here within the country and those in the diaspora. It's a great pleasure to be able to speak to you today. This new media that I haven't been to before. Thank you.
How do you feel being here?
It's great. I'm always impressed when I see these startups by young people. It's impressive.
Have you heard about us somewhere?
Yes, I have. And I do watch you, actually.
Wow. Okay. Incredible.
Yes, it's just I didn't know where you were located, so I haven't had the opportunity to appear. But I do watch you. You're covering very good topical areas, which is great. And we need alternative media. Yeah, because I think some of the big media stations have also begun to mistreat people. Yes.
What do you think about the media space as it is? What is the state of the media space?
I think the media space we've seen recently has been some challenges with biased reporting by some of the bigger media houses who felt like they control the airwaves. But luckily for us, there is alternative media like yourselves. In fact, what I tell the big media houses now, that the social media, any kind of media station, is going to be the main media stations. Those are the main media stations. The big ones, the big boys, are going to be the alternative media.
In fact, they need to stop calling us alternative media.
No, they are the
We are the media.
You're the media. Actually, the social media, the Facebook, the WhatsApp, and all the Instagram or whatever young people use, and media houses such as yourselves are the main media at the moment.
Right.
The big media stations that we have known traditionally are, in fact, according to me, the alternative media. So keep it up, because we need that. That is going to make sure that we are not manipulated by the big media houses that have a lot of resources.
Oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. I really appreciate that you watch us. I didn't know that you watch us. So we're really
honored. It's my
honored.
business and job to watch what's happening in the country. That's part of my brief.
So I think we'll start with you, because I think that's where these people have taken us to. It's actually incredible. I've been seeing what you've been doing. I think I've shared a number of things that you're doing when you're giving out the items you're giving to women and young people in GISHU County. And I keep wondering, is it that there are women reps who are given more money than the others?
It's called, I believe in a principle of minimum resources and maximum impact. So you don't have to have a lot of resources to make an impact in people's lives. And usually, if you listen to the ordinary citizen, they will tell you what they need. All the programs in my office are not driven by my ideas, but what people are asking for. Women will come to us and say, we don't have a posho mill in our area. We have to go very far to go and mill maize. So they say, if we have one, we'll not only be solving a problem in the community, but we shall also be creating employment for ourselves. So that's why you saw we provided, I think, over 20
milling
machines to various parts of GISHU. We had a situation where, again, young people and women and came to us and said, it costs a lot of money, and we have to wait for day-old chicks to be procured from Uganda. Can you believe that?
Wow.
So they said sometimes we have to wait on the queue. The companies that provide them, there is a shortage in the country. So if we can be able to have day-old chicks for sale, then we will be able to earn a living. So they actually identify the gap themselves in the market and what they can sell. And so we leave that to them usually. So it's been quite impressive what they have done. And that's why you saw that we gave out incubator machines. So again, we gave to various parts of the county. Several women and persons with disabilities benefited from it. Because with the incubators, you simply put in 500 eggs, and within 21 days, you will have the day-old chicks for sale. So even a person with disability doesn't have to, can be able to run that machine. It doesn't require them to have physical strength to till land or to go to a market and so on.
All right. Yes. So where do you get your budget from?
Our budget. Yes, we get from GAF. But I've also got some goodwill from other people. So if we say we are buying 10 incubators, I may get well-wishers, various foundations, who will be able to say we'll put in another 5 incubators. If it's wheelchairs, we have the Maritime Foundation has been able to add us some wheelchairs when we needed them. We have people like Manisha, who's also given us some of those, added the wheelchairs to what we have. So we use our GAF money, but then we also get
friends,
support from friends. Yes.
Okay. So what have you been up to? Are you eyeing something else apart from the seat that you are currently occupying? Kidogo nilisikia ulitaka tumbo joto kidogo, ulikuwa unasema governor.
Actually, I have never talked about until recently, I've never talked about saying I want to go for governor or senator and so on. I believe that I want to, kazi ni kazi, first of all. So it doesn't matter what position I am in. I know that I'll be able to serve my people from there. But I also take stock and ask myself, where is the best place to serve my people?
Yeah.
And when I look at it at the moment, I know for sure that my candidate, who's Dr. William Ruto, will be president in August 2022. And when he becomes president, we have to already jipanga sahizi and tell ourselves what support will he need in order to deliver on his promises. Currently, he's made promises on the bottom-up economic model. For the bottom-up economic model to be able to be implemented, we need at least amendments and passing of more than 80 pieces of legislation. Where will that legislation be passed? At the National Assembly. No, at the National Assembly, not at Senate.
Parliament is too.
And I know that is my strength. So if I will be able to ensure that my people benefit from this economic model, I'm better off being in a place where I can ensure that legislation is passed and implemented. When, for the bottom-up economic model again, to be implemented, there will be need for readjustment of the budget appropriation format and formula in our parliament. And remember, it's only parliament that passes the budget. That's where the budget is actually appropriated. So that is the best place to be in to ensure that the bottom-up economic model can be implemented.
The policies.
All the policies. If you look at appointments in cabinet, executive appointments, state corporations, government policy, government reports, and so on, and even the approval of international legislation happens at the National Assembly.
Right.
So what I know for sure is I will remain at the National Assembly.
So you've been answered.
Defend my seat.
So you're defending your human rights seat?
Yes, but even if I were to go to another seat, it will be at the National Assembly and not at the Senate.
So are you going for anything else, or you're defending your seat?
I'm defending my seat.
All right. So now you have it, guys. GLADYS SHOLLEI is defending women rep seat of GISHU County. Kwa hivyo basi amesema yuko ground asongi na sasa mizizi ndio imeshika chini zaidi. So you guys have been answered. That's what she's been up to. She's been working for you, and she feels the best place to still continue to serving you and serving the national interest, as she has said in her own words, is to remain at the National Assembly. Now we've talked about the state of your politics, the state of your county, and what you've been doing. Now, what is the state of the nation? Generally, where do you think the nation is?
Okay, the nation at the moment, Kenyans are actually currently tired of what's going on. Kenyans in terms of government programs, Kenyans have been disappointed since 2018. Because what happened is, in 2013, when the Uhuru Ruto government came in, there was a lot of energy. There was plans that were to be put in place. And in fact, a lot of work did happen at that time.
From 2013?
Yes, from 2013. There was the last mile electricity connections. There was the roads network being implemented. The building of the technical and vocational training. And then there was also the Big Four that was supposed to be implemented. And therefore, it was going to spur economic growth and create employment. The development of the TVETs was to ensure that we have skilled labor so that Kenya can be ready to move into an industrialized nation, and to be able to get involved in manufacturing, which was one of the Big Four. And Kenya was actually on the right path at that time. But something happened in 2018. March of 2018, there was the handshake. After the handshake, all focus shifted to BBI and the attempt for constitutional amendments in order to reward certain big politicians. They forgot about the Wananchi. The Big Four was forgotten. The road network, nothing fresh has started. Whatever is going on at the moment is what was started in 2013 after the new government came in. So we have been disappointed. But not all is lost. Luckily, we have the current presidency that is focused on constitutional change and rewarding 5 or so persons is leaving office, we have a chance as Kenya to take back our country and put it back on the right track. And that is what's going to happen, and hence the reason why we are clearly saying that we need to have a candidate who will go back to that development agenda that we had planned and thought through as people who had supported the Jubilee government.
Okay. So the state of the nation is that Kenyans are disappointed.
Yes.
All right.
And it hasn't been easy also having with COVID, what already a bad economy, which was not picking up, has been made worse by the fact that we've had COVID. Thank God now that the economy has been opened up, because people have suffered. People need to realize that for every restaurant, they would have 3 shifts if they were running for 24 hours. But during COVID, they could only run 1 shift.
Even 0 at times.
Yeah.
I know a lot of
and
friends.
0 at times, many of them closed, which means for every 3 persons, 1 person lost their job. And that has really caused a lot of economic burden on Kenyans. But in between this economic burden that was going on, we had people still having resources to spend on BBI and pay task forces to the billions of shillings, illegal task forces. That was a sad place that our country has been. We are happy that the courts have actually saved this country by declaring BBI unconstitutional, so that we can forget about it and focus on
the agenda of the nation.
Agenda of
All right.
the nation.
Okay. Now, the president is back. He has been on an international tour. He was in America. I think there's somewhere else he was in. He's been moving around. I've not been able to really keep track of his movements. But the last time he was away, he was in America. And he met some news when he was away. There's some news that came out about Pandora papers. And the president came out and spoke to us and told us that he appreciates the report. And he believes that the report is going to ensure that there's more transparency and honesty in leadership and resources. So he's back. He promised to give us a statement when he's back. I think I've seen him around. He was on Masujade on Tuesday. He was on Tuesday on Wednesday. On Wednesday, he was in Kirinyaga. He helped us remove the curfew. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Now we are free and running. And actually, Kenyans realized they were not planning to go anywhere.
Yes.
After the curfew was removed, they were still sleeping in their homes. But anyway, so where is the Pandora statement from the president?
Yes, I think the news came out that of the Pandora's papers, which clearly showed that the president's family has money overseas that is stashed in various tax havens and has had it for many years. And those stories are true, because by the time you see CNN and other international media houses reporting it, they are correct, because I know their standards of ensuring what they report is true is so high, because they can be bankrupted by lawsuits. So we know that it is true. The president did not deny it. He said we give him time to go to America and come back and be able to respond to it. In fact, he said it will be a new era of transparency. As the president said that, I recalled that the president himself actually suspended all procurement officers in Kenya some time back. And he said that they must undergo a lifestyle audit of what they own and what their families own. So he extended the lifestyle audit of the public officer to family.
Okay.
We want the president to use the same yardstick for himself. So even if that money overseas is not his, the way he made the procurement officers declare what their families own, we also want him to come out clean to Kenyans and declare what his families own. We also want him to come back to us and say, when I became president of Kenya, I was required by law to declare my wealth. This is what I declared. Let him tell us that I actually declared what was said by the Pandora's boxes, papers. So he needs to explain that. He needs to come out clean as a sign of good faith. After all, he has been at the forefront of fighting corruption. In sometime, I think in 2014 or 2015, the president again dramatically went to parliament and presented what he called a list of shame. I'm surprised that his own family was not on that list of shame. Because
why do you think the president's family should?
When we talk about that somebody when we say you declare your wealth, for fighting corruption purposes, you're actually supposed to declare the source of your wealth. So if the president is true to how, if he has to walk the talk, then he should be honest to Kenyans and declare the source of the wealth of his family.
Okay.
Yes.
So he should come out and declare that. But
should
now, so you believe that should be the yardstick for leaders. Everybody should declare their wealth and where they've gotten their wealth from.
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, the law is clear that as a public officer we should declare wealth, and that should there be any corruption allegation against you, that declaration can be opened up and looked at. Okay. But the president set the standard himself. He set an even higher standard by calling out people who he thought were corrupt. They were not, some of them were not even corrupt, but he called them out and has been saying that other people are corrupt, pointing fingers. He has terrorized the procurement officers in the public service. He has taken a list of shame to Parliament, to people even who eventually were found with no cases to answer. So we are saying is that because if you think other people must do that, then do it for yourself. He has held himself at a much higher standard than than the normal standard.
All right. So now the same thing on the same. I mean, why are we so hard on the president? Is it illegal to have offshore accounts?
It is not illegal, but it is immoral.
What is immorality in it?
The immorality is, I think first of all, when you're a head of state, I want to believe that you must be the one person who must be the most patriotic. By the time you make the rest of us and persuade the rest of us to line up and vote you as a leader, then you want to be a leader of a country you believe in.
Okay.
If you are going to, if we have to trust you to turn around our economy, then you should believe in our economic environment sufficiently to put in your resources. Okay. Because if you don't believe in our economic system and you're putting your money aside, then why do you want to lead a country whose economy you're supposed to be turning around and you don't even believe in? Is it that you don't intend to do any work for us? So it's immoral and doesn't look good. It's very bad optics. And if you look, all the dictators and failed leaders across the world stashed their money overseas. Obacha is one. Abacha, is it? There was Abacha. Yeah. There was the Zambian president. There were those that, all these Francophone African countries where they took their money to France and bought villas in France while their people were suffering and living in abject poverty. If you're a leader and there's nothing with having money and being wealthy or as a leader, but I think it's a sign of good faith to actually put your money in Kenya, because then at least the money circulates. You'll be saying, I'm committed to this country and I believe in this country. Okay.
All right. Now, you've served in the judiciary before. That in 2004 before you moved to politics. Now, the government, for the first time, is losing cases back to back. The latest was yesterday when the president has been directed. I wonder, but now, why is the court is being legal by being illegal? Can the courts actually define law? Can they be the ones who say this is the procedure? Are they not jumping the walk even before you go to the government losing? Is the court doing the right thing?
Okay, you must remember that when the president took office, he swore to defend, protect, and uphold the Constitution of Kenya. Okay. He swore in public before all Kenyans. As a member of Parliament, I swore to protect and uphold the Constitution. As an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, I took oath of office. Again, I swore as an advocate, as an officer of the court, to defend the Constitution of Kenya. You, as a Kenyan, under Article 3, is obligated. Just by being a Kenyan, you don't have to take the oath of office. You don't have to take oath. You are obligated to uphold, defend, and protect the Constitution of Kenya. Okay. And who checks us or ensures that we uphold that Constitution? It is the courts. Right. So when you don't follow the Constitution, you can be taken to court to be compelled to follow the Constitution, protect, and
so the courts are right even at that point.
The courts are right. The courts are doing their job because the lawmakers and society envisage a situation where you'd have incorrigible human beings who would refuse to follow the Constitution. So where do we run to?
The courts.
Yes, the courts. You can also petition Parliament. So there's various arms of government that has ensures to protect that. But when you really feel aggrieved as a member of the public, and you find that you've reached a situation where no one is following the Constitution, then we go to the courts. And remember, the courts' business is to interpret the law.
Yeah.
Parliament makes the law.
Okay.
Citizens are obligated to follow the law. When there is a failure to do that, or you're not sure what the law means, you go to the judiciary to interpret the law. That's why countries have judiciaries. And remember that the judiciary is the oldest institution. It's older than the Kenyan Republic. It came into Kenya in 1897, before we had a nation called Kenya. So it is the oldest institution. It tells you it has been the place to run to from the times when we had kings who could chop people's heads without any legal recourse. That is why judiciaries came in. So the judiciary is perfectly within its mandate and exactly what is required to do.
All right. So now let's move to the next one. The presidency or the government has accused the judiciary of being a rogue judiciary, or actually a judiciary out to be vindictive against government. And now the judiciary as well, Maraga, before he left, he said that we are dealing with a government that ab initio set out to disobey the courts and disobey the Constitution. Do you think we have a rogue government, as Maraga insinuated, or we are so vindictive?
I think Uhuru Kenyatta will go down in history as being the worst president in terms of the rule of law. That will be his legacy.
Wow.
Because he has not respected the rule of law whatsoever. What the courts, if you look at the law, it clearly says that the Judicial Service Commission shall appoint the judges.
Okay.
I mean, shall nominate the judges, they shall interview them, vet them, and appoint them. There is a process for doing that. And then the president shall appoint them through gazettement and swear them in. The president's role is ceremonial. He is not a decision-making in deciding who becomes judge or not. This was tested under President Kibaki. Under President Kibaki, the Judicial Service Commission nominated Willy Mutunga. The person who came in number 2, because the president has to be told the entire report, was Visram, Justice Visram. And President Kibaki preferred Justice Visram, and he appointed Justice Visram. But the JSC told the president, and the then Attorney General advised the president that it is not his role to nominate who becomes Chief Justice, and that the JSC does not have to give him 2 names. The JSC gives him 1 name, and he has no choice but nominate. That is the essence of separation of powers. We moved from the old constitution where the president would appoint and swear in a judge on the lunchtime news without consulting anybody and without vetting
actually
that judge.
fire.
We cured that mischief by ensuring that we have a process under the current constitution where the Judicial Service Commission, which is made of various stakeholders, including the representative of the president and government through the Attorney General and the head of public service in the Judicial Service Commission. So President Kibaki was a reasonable president because even though he had his preferred candidate, I was in some of the meetings because I was at I joined the Judicial Service Commission thereafter. And he took a back step and said, if that is what the law is, I will respect the law. I was hoping a situation where Uhuru Kenyatta
Would do the same.
would do the same. And I hope that the Attorney General gave him sound advice, because President Kibaki at that time was given sound advice. If you look at the issue of the BBI, for example, same thing. It is clear, and I think I said it long before the matter went to the courts, that BBI is an illegality.
Okay.
And the Attorney General reads the same books, the same law books that I read, and the same law that I read, and every lawyer in town. So it's not vogue. It's not something that was my opinion. It is what the law says. So any law student would tell you that BBI was illegal. But again, I'm sure the president was informed, and he never acted, and eventually he got into the embarrassing situation where there was a majority decision by a 5 judge bench declaring BBI, which had his signature through a gazette notice, declared unconstitutional.
Null and void.
Yes. For me, if I was the Attorney General, I would resign. It is an embarrassing place to be.
All right. Another question comes. Where is the Attorney General? Because the Attorney General is the one who should be prosecuting government business in courts. Where is he? Because, I mean, does he still earn a salary? Is still an office of an Attorney General?
Actually, the current Attorney General, Sheria Wiki, and the current Solicitor General, Ogeto, both of them are brilliant legal minds. Okay. I can tell you that. So I know for sure the legal opinion that I had was the same legal opinion that they had. The judgment that was passed by the court that I agreed with, I'm sure they agree with it. So I have no doubt in my mind. I have no doubt in my mind that they gave the president the correct legal advice. Okay. But if the president can decide to take advice or not take advice, and that's what I believe. But I hope that they did, for purposes of history, I hope the Solicitor General and the Attorney General gave the president the legal opinion in writing.
Have you tried?
If I was the Attorney General myself, I would give my president the legal opinion in writing. And if my president lost all these cases in court, and was embarrassed 8 times like Uhuru Kenyatta has done, and I was the Attorney General, I would resign.
You would resign?
I would resign. It is the most embarrassing thing, because these are things that you could have anticipated. The Huduna number, the right to privacy in the Constitution is the most clear article. How is it that they didn't do? Because for every action of the president gets a legal opinion. Even President Obama, who was a Harvard-trained lawyer, had an army of legal advisors for every action that he undertook. And when they thought that they would be in a bad place, you can negotiate out of it. So why is it then the Nairobi Metropolitan, what is called the NMS? Nairobi
Metropolitan Services.
Yes, services. Nairobi Metropolitan Services. If you see, I did write a legal article, a legal opinion article, a brief one, in the Nation newspaper. I said, in fact, the title was, "The transfer of services from Nairobi County Government is illegal."
That was the title?
That was the title.
Okay.
When BBI came out, I wrote an article again calling out the illegality of it. The refusal to appoint the judges, I wrote an article relating to that. On the refusal of the president to dissolve parliament on account that it did not meet the 2/3 gender requirement rule, again I wrote an article. And people wonder why I write these articles. It's because I want history one day to be able to say, actually, GLADYS as an officer of the court never failed us. Because I think it would be wrong for me as a person who has taught law at the university to let things happen in my country and not say anything about it. If anyone within government was doing their intelligence, they should have said, let's maybe check out what GLADYS' opinion, whether it's right or not. So you can't say that they were ignorant of it. So if the Attorney General didn't tell them, I did tell them through my articles and YouTube videos. And that I was doing it as a service to Kenyans, because I said, we can't all be silent. I will say
someone has to speak out.
That's, I know.
Now, these officers working for government, including the AG and the Solicitor General, are your peers. I mean, my peers in the media sometimes
people I hold with high respect, and that's why I told you I have no doubt that they know what the law is.
So I mean, we in the media, my peers in the media, maybe sometimes we sit down for a drink and we talk about, what you guys said yesterday on the TV is not right. You guys sometimes maybe have a conversation, and do you speak to the presidency about the things that matter to the country?
No, not anymore.
You don't speak with them.
There was a time when I was chairperson of delegated legislation. And when I was a member of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament, whenever there was government business or various government state institutions came to the committees in Parliament, I was being someone who has worked in all arms of government, all the 3 arms of government, I call myself a total public servant. I always made sure, and I used my knowledge and experience to try and make sure that things did work. Yeah, so when the Attorney General appeared before the committees. We always wanted government to work, and we would say that. And sometimes my opinion was sought. But of course, after we were sort of kicked out of Jubilee, de-whipped for taking a certain position of supporting the deputy president, I'm no longer chairperson of that committee, and I'm no longer in any of the legal committees in Parliament.
Okay.
And that's why I will not stop at trying to give advice. That's why I do go to the media houses. I go on YouTube. I do YouTube videos. Yeah. I also write a lot of articles. So I still comment on this because I believe if I can't serve my people through my positions in Parliament or sitting in certain committees in Parliament, I can serve them by still ensuring that the message goes out there. And it also ensures that future leaders will now know that it's always important to follow the rule of law.
All right. Okay.
So that is my contribution, and I will not tire because this is my country. I'm not going to let it go. So if you get me out of the committees, I still have voice to speak on your... I can come here and talk to you and talk to people. So I do appreciate... I don't take for granted the opportunity to speak to the media or to people through various medias because I believe that is part of my service to the country. So when you see me actively doing that, I say, if I'm in a position to do this, let me do it. Because ultimately, it did work. I do look at BBI. From the beginning, we began a campaign saying that it was illegal. Through the Inua Mama forums, we went around the country telling people that this is an illegality, this is an attempt to circumvent the Constitution. I believe that is what my people elected me to be their representative. Because not every member of UASIN GISHU who elected me is able to come to this station.
Sure.
They're not able to have their articles in the newspapers. So as their representative, that is my duty. It is part of my service. And it is what I've been hired to do.
Okay. All right. Talking about BBI, it's gone to the Supreme Court. What do you expect from
it? A second-year law student will tell you.
Rega has taken a break. The DJ is taking some water.
And that is why when you call something as serious as amending our constitution reggae, it's not a joke. I actually take offense.
Okay.
How can someone as senior as Raila Odinga, who fought for the rule of law in Kenya, by the way, this current constitution, a lot of credit goes to Raila Odinga for fighting for it. He fought against arbitrary arrests. Today, Kamata Fridays are happening under his watch, and he's not said a word. Raila Odinga was the one who fought for this constitution. He locked in the Chapter 15 constitutions. He fought for the independence of the judiciary, because remember, he had treason trials where the judiciary was not independent. Today, he's suffering from amnesia. I don't think he remembers the history. Yet, some of us looked up to him at that time as an opposition leader who stood for the rule of law. Now, William Ruto and people like myself have taken his space to fight for the rule of law. Now we are the chief opposition leaders to check parliament. To check government.
The government.
It is sad. So when I think it's wrong for a senior leader to call it reggae. It's not a joke.
Okay.
Coming to overhaul a constitution that Kenyans fought for and died for over 20 years. I think is wrong. It's an offense to the intelligence of Kenyans.
So what's its fate at the Supreme Court? What's the fate of BBI?
It's not going anywhere.
Okay.
I think if you look at, I think if I was the Attorney General, the only point I would go to the Supreme Court for is to at least get the president to be let off on the issue that he committed an illegality, and that in fact he can be, they can go after him on civil proceedings in his personal capacity. That's the only thing I would do to try and save the president, just that aspect. But on anything else, nothing will change. When the High Court pronounced that the basic structure doctrine is applicable in Kenya, that is it.
Okay.
The basic structure doctrine was affirmed by the Supreme Court during the National Assembly versus Senate case. That was the Mutunga Court. It was already pronounced. Kenya is a common law system. Commonwealth countries I mean, the law, and you see, when we interpret the law in Kenya, we also look at the interpretations by other similar legal regimes.
Okay.
And this has been settled law since the 1960s. So people think the basic structure doctrine arrived in Kenya the other day. No. In fact, it has been pronounced by many of our courts, but because it was not in high-profile cases, it didn't come to the fore. But I'm happy that that the BBI case, in fact, I'm glad, and I kept on encouraging that that people should go to court on the BBI matter, because I said then we can settle the principles applicable to amendment to the Constitution. And now I'm glad that that has been settled. And the Court of Appeal did a superb job also in ensuring that they went back and settled that aspect of the law.
Okay.
So I only believe that going to the Supreme Court is massaging the ego of those who felt offended by losing BBI. It has nothing to do with a legitimate legal position. Yes.
Okay.
I'm not even following it anymore, because I looked at it and I said, this is a joke.
Okay. All right,
Don't waste your time on it.
As we wrap up that conversation with the presidency and the judiciary. Now, the president of Mashujadi also spoke. He made a statement. And he said that hata wakiendelea kufanya uamuzi vile wanafanya, even if they continue at these courts doing what they are doing, sisi tutaendelea na mipangilio zetu. What bearing does it have? Considering that, first of all, BBI is still at the Supreme Court. We still have other cases that are coming in. You have the ruling that was done yesterday on the judges. We had a ruling as well last week on Huduma Number.
And
we've been having
CASs,
rulings.
the cabinet assistant secretaries
yeah.
were declared illegal.
So the president made a statement Mashujadi ya kwamba hata wakiendelea kufanya uamuzi, if they continue the rulings and decisions, sisi tutaendelea na mipangilio zetu. What bearing does it give in the light of all these cases that have been ruled?
I think that is an extremely shameful and disappointing statement by a head of state of a democratic country. Only dictators and banana republics can have their president make such statements. In fact, it is trite law and decorum that a democratic head of state does not comment on the judiciary.
Okay.
You never speak in disparaging words against the judiciary, because it means you no longer believe in the rule of law. Remember again, he swore to uphold the Constitution. Okay. And part of upholding the Constitution says you must respect the independence of the judiciary. You must also accept that the judiciary has the authority in interpretation of the Constitution. That's what all that is in. It's all in the Constitution. So that Constitution that you held in Kasarani has all that. So the moment you speak in pedestrian, abusive language against the judiciary, you have gone against every democratic principle there is. And I'm saddened by it. And in fact, I always say, when my next president is in office, he will never make statements like that, because we will not let him say things like that. And I don't think he's that kind of personality. It is wrong. I don't know who writes his speeches, because even the president's speech is supposed to be reviewed by economists, by lawyers, to ensure, his advisors, to ensure that he hasn't said anything that is out of line. Okay. So the president is actually speaking like a makanga on the streets. Voilà. He's not speaking like somebody who has an entire attorney general office, 7 floors to boot, helping him. He has the biggest law firm in the country. You know, the attorney general's office is the biggest law firm in the country.
It's a national
That means he has an army of lawyers to advise him. So even if one is wrong and the other one is wrong, there will be somebody who will tell him that he's not right. He should not have spoken like that. What a president should say is that, in as much as we may not agree with the decision of the judiciary, we respect the rule of law, we respect the independence of the judiciary, and we do hope that we can be able to reach a proper decision on this process. He should put it like that. Because when we give you the power to run government, we didn't tell you to run it how you want and any way you want. It says in accordance to the Constitution. Okay. Even when it says the president has the power to appoint task forces, persons, and so on, it says in accordance to the Constitution. You know, you'll see that rider. Every power the president has, it says in accordance to the Constitution. Okay. So the president cannot act how he feels. Sometimes I don't agree with the law myself. And many people will tell you they don't agree with the law sometimes. But as decent human beings, and as the people who believe in democracy and the rule of law, we have no choice
but to respect the law.
But submit to the rule of law. Because one day, if they don't follow the rule of law on you, they will not follow the rule of law on someone else.
Okay.
Because Kenyans need to know the only reason why a president cannot go around chopping your heads and throwing you in jail because he doesn't like your face.
Because we have a law.
It's because we have a law. So the law is protecting all of us. The only reason why I don't drive my car and crash this building if I'm annoyed with the owner is because there is
a law. Because
so let us respect the law. It is not fair, and I believe that if the president replays that clip, he will be embarrassed. And I think if his Attorney General reads it, listens to it, I think he'll cringe.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So
there's one thing I can assure you, as part of the next government, my president will never make the same mistakes.
Are you sure? You're holding it against you.
Will they ever lose a case?
I don't know. If you're lucky, if you guys are lucky to get there, you want to hold this against you. That you said,
yes,
the such things will not happen
even
again.
if they don't listen, I will always be out there. As long as God gives me the strength and good health, I will always speak about it.
All right. So now we have a case. Kenya Power has hit headwinds again. For the first time, I think in history, Kenya Power is making losses. It is a public listed company. The president declared a committee to look into it, or a task force. You know, the task force is not a very new word in this country. But we have a task force that is looking into Kenya Power. Kenya Power is a publicly listed company, but the government has taken it as a government project. They said, now this is a government project, and we are seeing cases that are haunting Kenya Power. Now, the president said in very particular terms that the contracts, the PPP contracts that we have now, power purchasing agreements that we have, and this is PPA, power purchase agreements that we have at the moment will not be reviewed. And they have said that the prices of energy is going to go down. As we are speaking, Kenyans are crying. Seen here, there's a case of a company called Door House, an hotel, that has sued Kenya Power for a bill of 2.6 million, and it's saying its normal or usual consumption of energy is between 25,000 to 35,000, but now they've been given with a slap with a bill of 2.6 million. Now, I'd want to wonder, first of all, is it legal for the government to take over the operations of Kenya Power? Is it okay for the president to appoint the task force to look into reconstructing Kenya Power? And we've seen also the complaints from the management that the same people that the president has appointed as in the task force are the same people who have been pulling down Kenya Power because they sit in the board. They sit in the board as well. They're saying the board has been the problem in running of Kenya Power. Now, is it proper for the government to take over a publicly listed company and declare it a government project? And secondly, if they have said that they're not going to review the PPA agreements that were in place, how then are we going to reduce the cost of power? And how are we going to protect as well the consumers?
I think I must say this. There's been a lot of dishonesty surrounding the whole of the Kenya Power and Lighting Company. Kenyans have never been told the truth of what puts up the cost of power. The Kenya Power has been held hostage by various cartels and companies that are benefiting from Kenya Power at the expense of the ordinary citizen and at the expense of industry and businesses around the country. Every business person, the big ones, the small ones, will tell you that we can employ more people, we can increase our manufacturing, but the cost of power is prohibitive. You talk to the ordinary citizen, the cost of power is way beyond reach. I, in person, can tell you that I have had challenges with electricity bills. I look at the bill and I ask myself, I couldn't have spent, I'm not running a factory in my home, yet the bills are exorbitant. So if I'm complaining, then what's happening to other Kenyans? So even saying that we want to connect electricity to every homestead, let's make it affordable. Not only will it will increase manufacturing and industry, which creates employment, but it will also ensure that people can be able to improve and have value addition for their activities, including farming. Now, we have one problem that I know. these PPEs, the public-private partnerships. What happened is they were signed with Kenya Power. But unfortunately, with all these windmills and so on, they were signed at very high costs. Okay. So even though the business environment has improved, those PPEs cannot be renegotiated because they still exist. And those PPEs, those private companies that are partnering with Kenya Power, are owned by very influential families in this country. Okay. And that is why it is very difficult to undo those PPEs. So what we are asking as Kenyans is make the PPEs, the public...
The PPPs, PPAs,
partnerships, agreements, PPAs,
power purchase agreements,
have to be made public. Okay. Let's post them on the internet. Let's allow every Kenyan to read it and tell us who are the beneficiaries of these agreements. That's where we must start if we want to be honest. It does not matter if you set up 1 million task forces. Those task forces are designed to cover up the same culprits. That's the reality. Another issue is we need to look at some point when the prices of power jumped. I can't remember the exact year, but I remember at that time we had shortage of rainfall, which means hydropower could not meet the demand. Okay. So they had to use diesel and fuel to compensate for the production. We then got something introduced into our bills called the fuel energy
levy.
Levy. But even when and you see, so people got contracts to supply diesel to Kenya Power. But even when we had water, sufficient rainfall, and therefore the hydro could go back to its capacity,
we didn't reverse it.
We didn't reverse it because these people continue making money from supplying diesel. Yeah, so whether we have high rainfall or low rainfall or hydro can work, that has never been removed. Let me give you an example of what is in your...
So are we still supplying diesel?
Let me give you what is in your bill. Right. In your bill, this is a bill, I think I asked somebody to send it to me. The person paid by token 4,500 shillings, yeah? The amount that went to their actual payment of their bill, they got electricity for 4,500. They got electricity worth 2,856 because VAT took 599. Okay. Fuel charge took 596. That's 1,000 shillings already. Yeah. Forex charge took 2,000.
What is forex charge?
It's the fluctuation,
of the shilling.
The shilling, yes. Okay. And then IPRA, Energy
Regulatory Authority.
Yes. They took 5 shillings. This is for those big board of directors to drive Prados, have a fancy office, and have mandazi in their office and so on. Because I don't know what they sit to do if they're not making changes. Then there is WAMA, which is the Water Resources Management Authority. 3, that's about 3 shillings. 4 shillings actually, it's almost 4 shillings. Then they have another charge of 142. Then there is inflation adjustment, which is 84 shillings. So actually, and this goes the same for fuel, and this goes the same for...
So how much is power there? How much has gone
actually,
into...
out of 4,500, you've only got 2,800 shillings worth of power. The rest, you're paying all sorts of levies. So the question should be, the Water Resources Management, whatever it is, body, and then there is the Electricity Authority, Regulatory Authority. So all these institutions, which is basically, we must see how much is the administrative costs. Why can't we have one institution to do all this? Because I don't think if you're dealing with power, you're dealing with power. Whether you're talking about the fuel or the water or the...
Power is power.
Power is power. It's under one topic. So first of all, those extra costs, those redundant institutions that are just set up to be able to reward some people politically to get a position and for them to be their retirement job is the problem. So we need to begin to interrogate what is happening in the power. We also must ask ourselves something very interesting, that Kenya Power charges me all this, which means they are not subsidizing me for anything. Haven't they charged every single penny?
They have.
Even for the boardroom to sit, it is paid for from my bill. So why do they report losses? Because at worst, they should be breaking even. Yeah, we are getting apple for apple.
Yes.
It should be cost at worst. I believe they should be making a profit.
Yeah.
Because once you lay the infrastructure, you don't repeat it.
Yeah.
Once you put a transformer, it's years before
Once you have the
repeat
cables.
years. Exactly. So how come if they charge us to the minute for every aspect of giving the electricity to my homestead, then how is it that they are still making losses? Okay. There is something very interesting there. And when government is being asked to put in more money to cover the losses, and they're being given money every year to subsidize them and support their losses, these private owners, they're getting a free ride in the company. Because there are some private owners in that Kenya Power. So Kenya Power, the story has not been told. They can set up their task force, but it's not going to help. It is just a gimmick to calm Kenyans down. And I think you should invite Cherotich Sei. She's been very vocal on this issue, and she's probably a better authority on it Kenya for Power. Me. So please, she has taken on Kenya Power. I think she was also been involved in some public interest litigation around it. And I think if you want Kenyans to know, I think invite her and let her follow this.
We had actually talked yesterday, but she's up country.
Yes, she's
up country. Maybe she's up country. Maybe when she comes in, we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, just give her a whole topic on that because she's got a great knowledge on this point and she has done a lot of research.
So, in your opinion, how do we protect the consumer? Because it looks like now the consumers are on their own.
The consumers are on their own. I think what has happened is we don't have goodwill from the government. And I hope that people will undertake some public interest litigation demanding for the documentation from Kenya Power. We don't want that the task force can be there, but I would be asking people like Cherotich, who have been vocal on this, she can demand under the right to information to ensure that the task force has submitted to it publicly the contents of all these agreements and the beneficiaries of these agreements. And to give us what amounts of money, on this money that's collected, what exactly do we pay that board, regulatory authority for? How much those members get in sitting allowance, how many cars do they drive, how many officers, how many bodyguards, and so on, and whether that translates to making power cheaper for the consumer, because that is what it should be. So I think it's a very big topic. You can't go, I've not had authority on it, but I think it's something that should be given a full show in its own. All right, okay. That's my request to you.
All right, I'll invite Cherotich. I know you're watching, so karibu. Next week we break it down. We break down the Kenya Power special show on Kenya Power. It's a program for 2 hours on Kenya Power. Now let's go a bit to Somalia. Let's go a bit international. Now we're having a case with Somalia, and in Somalia, for a minute, they are putting our brave face on Kenya. And they are saying, we want our territory back. And Kenya is also speaking in its own terms. And they're saying, the president in his own words, not an inch more, not an inch less.
Again, that word of not an inch more and not an inch less is again another unfortunate statement by a head of state. Okay. It is. I didn't expect him to speak like that. Again, that's the kind of pedestrian language that I take issue with. First of all, I think it's important for Kenyans to know how this came about. Okay. First of all, Kenya is a signatory to the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. It signed it in 1982. And the current president has to continue what was signed by previous governments. Okay. That's the law. Kenya then ratified the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea in 1989. It ratified it. So it signed in 1982 and ratified it in 1989. I remember this very clearly because actually my Master of Laws degree is in Maritime Law.
Wow, okay.
Yes, from the University
so this is your
of Cape
place
Town.
of authority.
So this is something I understand quite well. So once Kenya signed, they were bound by that international convention. It's the reason why we ended up going to the ICC. And I respect the president and the deputy president because Kenya was a signatory to the Rome Statute and had ratified the Rome Statute. They had no choice but submit to the International Criminal Court, which they did respectfully. And that is the manner in which people should conduct themselves as a country. So, Article 15 of the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea says that unless there is an express agreement between the two countries, the equidistance from the coastline shall be used to demarcate the boundary.
Okay.
Equidistance, let's put it in simple language, it's a straight line. Yeah? From wherever the coastline is. So if you look at it, Kenya's argument was because they had used a parallel latitude line in an agreement with Tanzania, which they reached an agreement before the ratification of the convention, they believed that
The same
Somalia
should apply to Somalia.
would apply with Somalia.
Right.
But they had no agreement with Somalia. So, and then Kenya, so that was one of Kenya's argument. They said that is the same demarcation method that we used with Tanzania,
We should
and
also
therefore
paste
we
it.
should use it with Somalia.
Copy and paste.
Yes, but remember, with Tanzania, they reached an agreement. Article 15 says, in the absence of an agreement. With Tanzania, there was an agreement before we ratified the convention. In the case of Somalia, we ratified the convention before we entered into an agreement. It was unfortunate. It was a grave error by our Foreign Affairs Ministry. So, Somalia, and then Kenya says, but Somalia has never objected. That was their second argument, another weak argument. They said, in law, they say you are acquiesced to it, which means you agreed to it by the way you conducted yourself. You did not object, and therefore, that is the boundary. So, Kenya's argument was that by conduct, Tanzania has never objected, Somalia has never objected,
this,
and therefore,
They should
that
not complain.
parallel line that we want to draw is where the boundary should be. So, but the court's position is that they have to follow Article 15, which is in very simple language. In the absence of an express agreement, the equidistance shall be used to demarcate the boundary. So Somalia at some point, I think because of the challenges the country had with war and so on, they didn't have time to focus on it. But I think they got some situational awareness at some point and realized, we're in the right side on this one. And therefore they put their foot down. And when that did happen, the best thing should have been for us to enter into diplomatic negotiations.
With Somalia.
With Somalia. We should have entered into negotiations. Because when you know you won't win in court, try and settle out of court so that you get a win-win on both sides. Also remember, when Somalia went to court, Kenya should not have submitted itself to the court. Because once you submit yourself to the court, you can't pull out. You must always ask yourself, and that's why people have legal advisors. You can anticipate what the possible outcomes are. You may not know the exact outcome, but you can say it can be 1, 2, or 3.
You can try and predict.
Yeah, because I always say law is like math. It's 1 + 1 = 2. Except in law, it can be 2 or 3 or 4. But at least we know it's 3 possible answers. So once Kenya realized that, the Kenya should have anticipated what could be the possible outcome in the light of Article 15 and in the light of the fact that we are a signatory to the convention. What is it that could possibly come out? Unfortunately, we made that mistake. And I think, I wish we could
We have it on the screen, actually.
You have it on the screen?
It's been running on the screen, yes.
So if you, there are 3 places where Kenya has drawn it. I would like to draw attention, I'd like to draw attention to our viewers and our listeners. If you look at the yellow line, that is where Kenya's claim is, which is a parallel line along the latitude. That is what Kenya has. That is what Kenya claims. But if you look at Kenya's map on the coastline from Somalia, it's sort of a straight line and then takes an almost, 45-degree twist to the coastline. So the question is, should the straight line be at a 90-degree angle, or should it be at a 45-degree angle? So which one is the equidistance? That was the question. Somalia went on the literal equidistance rule, which means Kenya's border just running down the coastline. Kenya decided to pick it from there and make it a 45-degree angle, and which is a parallel line from the corner. That argument was put before the court. The court's decision has been, I think the court decided to do fair apportionment. So the court put it at the center between the two claims. So if you look at the Somalia claim, the Kenya claim, and what the court decided. Yes, as far as the original claim by Somalia in 1960, yes. Okay. So the court has given fair, has tried to go to the center between the two. Okay. I think the court was trying to be diplomatic and go to fair apportionment. So what I would have thought, and if I had the privilege of being able to have discussions with people in foreign affairs and other legal advisors of the president, I would have actually advised the president, don't say not an inch more, not an inch less, just go into diplomatic negotiations with Somalia. Kenya has been very, very supportive of Somalia. Kenya has helped Somalia in various, during the war, helped them fight Al-Shabaab and so on. So I think Kenya is in a position to leverage on the good relations and support
that they have with Somalia.
Yes.
But now
Kenya
what is the
has taken in a lot of refugees from Somalia during the wartime. So Kenya is in a good place to negotiate. And that's why I think it's important never to, don't just thump. You can be humble and negotiate, and you'll be able to get away.
All right. So what are the consequences? In this case, the president insists that not an inch more, not an inch less. What are the consequences? Does the court have the authority to implement the ruling it has made?
You see, once the court has made that decision, and if Somalia takes that position, it can be quite dangerous, because the two countries can have very acrimonious. Relations. It could be considered an act of war. So. And that is why the best thing is to step back and try and go into negotiations. It's not in the interest of Somalia, and it's not in the interest of Kenya for us to have an altercation with this neighbor, because it's still a strategic neighbor. It is very important for peace and security within the region, for Kenya to be in good relations with Somalia. And even in terms of trade and the ports and the use of the seas, the harvesting of the exclusive economic zones, areas for both countries, it's in their interest. And therefore, you do not want to be in an acrimonious situation with your neighbor. Yes.
So the president should, we have a horse. Anyway, the president said should climb down from his authoritative speech and maybe try and be more diplomatic with our neighbors, because you said we will defend our territory. So I don't think Kenya is ready for another war, especially when you're heading to an election. I mean, we can implement, we can try and find out if we can use other measures.
But you also ask yourself, to what end? To what end? That if you say you want to go into an altercation with Somalia, what do you benefit from it?
Okay, you get
and what do you lose from it? You've got to balance and ask yourself, you've got to act responsibly and in the best interest of the country. And also, I know that there will be also other countries, surrounding countries, and other strategic partners of Kenya who may not necessarily be in the region. It will be in their interest to ensure that there is peace in the region. If you notice, what happened is, when there was instability in Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, Somalia, and the DRC and so on, Kenya bore the biggest brunt of having to deal with all the, there was an influx of many refugees who came into Kenya. There was, and which eventually, exerted our own education system, our medical services, our housing facilities, and so on. So it is in great interest for the country to go into diplomatic relations. So I think this is not an issue that should be raised in an on Mashujaa Day. This is something that should be left for the boardrooms of diplomatic negotiations.
Okay. As we fungua bunga la mwenyenchi iko wazi, nambari ni 0779-800-010 au 779-800-010. Bunga la mwenyenchi iko wazi, nambari ni 0779-800-010. Kwa watu wa diaspora pia nambari ni hiyo +254-779-800-010 +254-779-800-010. Alright. 779-800-010. Bunga la mwenyenchi iko wazi. Azile bunga tunaifungua, I would want to ask Mheshimiwa, what do you think is the state of our diplomacy? Diplomatic policy?
At least if I were to use the one on Uganda, on the Somalia one, that is bad. But Kenya has been quite good with our diplomatic relations previously with our neighbors. If you look at the expansion of the East African community, I think Kenya has done very well on that. Kenya has remained in good relations with other foreign countries. In terms of workings and support and so on. So Kenya hasn't been that country that has reached the point where, let's say, other democratic countries have said we are cutting out relations with you because of your bad record of human rights and so on. If you remember, there was a time when we had a bad human rights record. The rule of law was at the lowest. And that is when even foreign aid was withdrawn from Kenya. Okay. The IMF pulled out of Kenya for almost 10 years until we put in a multi-party democracy. We began to have a more robust media space. I think that was also another issue. And Kenya has grown tremendously, and Kenya actually is highly respected across the world. We just have to be careful not to make small mistakes like picking a fight with Somalia, especially when many Kenyans in the northern part of Kenya are actually Somalis also. Yeah, they have the same cultural, historical, and ethnic ties with people in Somalia. It's like fighting with Tanzania when we have the Maasais in Kenya and some
Maasais in Tanzania.
Tanzania, yes. I think historically, for the sake of culture, ethnic ties, and history, it is in our interest to deal better with our neighbors.
Okay, all right. And I think as well, all these territories were invaded by the white man, because if you have Maasais in Tanzania, then it means it should have been one complete nation. You have Kalenjins in Uganda, you have Somalis in Somalia and Kenya.
Yes.
All right. So anyway, maybe we need to revert back to just being.
Even though the boundaries were drawn by the colonialists and it was not well thought out, and they chopped off and divided various families, the point is, at the moment, the issue of having the East African communities is to cure that, so that we have a free flow between Tanzania and Kenya, between Kenya and Uganda, considering that people have historical ties. Hence the reason why having these unions or communities in areas like the EU, the European Union has done the same thing, because they realize that people have historical ties within Europe, and that we should cure ourselves through our own diplomatic relations in having our own unions.
Good morning, Bunga la Mwenyenchi.
Morning to you, Gerald.
Jambo.
Jambo sana, habari ya boss.
Hata boss avae earphones alafu usalimia habari yake.
Okay, jambo sana. Aya, nakusikia sasa.
Sauti yako shida kidogo, vipi? Ndugu? Hello? Kama network ya huyo imezama. Bunga la Mwenyenchi iko wazi, nambari ni 0779-800-010. Umepotea ndugu yangu. 0779-800-010. Bunga la Mwenyenchi iko wazi, nambari ni 0779-800-010. Nikipiga pia panda juu ya mtu utafuta networks. Hapo ni wapi? Network bado haijafika. Lakini tutaangalia maneno. There's someone who has asked a question here. And I think there's also a comment saying from Kibetono. Kama Jambo, Bunga la Mwenyenchi.
Gerald, kwani ulimi blacklist bwana?
Bwana iko wazi. Ongea nisikie.
Salamia boss Sholei.
Nakusalimia sana. Is that Kibetrono?
Hapana.
Huyo
ni mungwana mwingine.
Umerudi. Okay, asante.
Karibu.
Habibi Aaron,
Yes,
okay, Aaron.
Yeah, naona Sholei anafanya kazi nzuri sana by the way.
Nashukuru. Asante.
Anashinda kwa nini hataki kuwa governor bwana?
Anasema yeye anataka kutengeneza sheria pale bunge.
Nani atawachungia sheria sasa nikikuja hapo kuwa governor?
naona wasigishu kidogo ungekuwa governor. Ungefaidika, lakini sawa pia naona utasaidia watu wa Atla Nation na sheria.
Kabisa.
Ndio wasifanye hii maneno tunasikia. Unajua hii kumbe serikali inaweza endeshwa bila sheria, ndio sasa wasitufanyia maneno tena.
Ndio sasa naona venye Uhuru sasa anakuwa revisited. Alikuwa anasema ata revisit, yeye mwenyewe ndiye anavisitiwa.
Tuambie.
So mimi nimefurahia, naona alifungua nje at least. Sisi tunaweza tembea kidogo lakini bado. Bado hii najua sasa okay anyway. Economy iko mbaya. But we hope.
At least amefungua ndio mtafute pesa usiku. Haya, bunge la mwananchi jambo. Good morning. Yunaye bwana amepotea. Wasikia Roni amesema unafanya kazi safi pale. Mungwana Kibero anakuwa mathematically ICJ in its application of the law didn't favor any country. It's a win-win situation. Tuning in from Ngumo, Nairobi. Abbas Njuguna, tell us briefly about the Migingo Island. Even as you're talking about defending our territory, what happened to Migingo? Bunge la mwananchi jambo.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Hi, actually.
Yeah, hello. Good morning.
Good morning to you. My name is Beth.
Okay, Beth. How are
Beth
you?
Beth is from Kapangoria. I'm fine, thank you. So mine is about the country now.
Okay.
Now that we have we are going to election, president want to endorse the other opposition partners, what will be the impact of the Atlas nation in all these things? Are we going to also get in touch with the other political parties, or UDA is going to be that party, that national party that is going to have its own presidential candidate plus the deputy from inside the UDA?
Okay. Hey.
Thank you.
Hey, haraka upesi sana umegonga yako
kisonga. Asante sana.
Toka Penguria. Naona nani hapa mwingine? Lotiri Ian anasema good morning Bito, greet my compatriots Kuruko. Turkana is a country of its own. Nilikuwa huko nikaambiwa salimia Kenya. Nilikuwa watu wa Elmolo wakaniambia ukifika Kenya salimiana ukifika Kenya. Lotiri, poleni bwana. It's actually interesting that almost 60 years post independence there are still Kenyans who feel they are not part of this nation. Interesting. And I was there. Anyway, nilipata mpaka watoto hawavai nguo bwana. Hawajaiona nguo dunia. Itegwe Tudia, morning Bitok, morning fellow Taklas Dai. Asante sana Paul J. Gerald, say hello to my brilliant political crush class boy SHOLLEI. Allah, okay. You have to shoot your shots. And yes, greetings to my party leader. Ekuru bada kwa Sudani. Paul hakuweza kufika, ndege kama ilimpiga chenga kidogo. Paul J says GB, tell GBS to relax. Reggae resonates with the general mood of politics in Kenya. Really just a shrewd political operator. I taught someone, all right. Gabriel Mutisia, nakuona. Sir Lawrence TV, say hello to Madam Boss. Sir Lawrence TV says, is it not the responsibility of MPs to interrogate what's going on and ultimately protect the common mwananchi? Swala nyeti kwako. Paul Jaswell says, boss, you obviously clearly do not like President UMK. However, using languages such as pedestrian in reference to the POC KE is disrespectful. Bunge la mwananchi. Bunge la mwananchi jambo. Bunge la mwananchi. Kama amezama. Bunge la mwananchi.
Hey, Bwana Jero.
Habari yake?
Sasa unajua nilikuwa nimesinzia kidogo.
Hao watu wa diaspora wanaona na chicho moja.
Boss lady, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. First of all, hao watu wanakuambia urani senator, waambie mimi nataka urani for president. Sijui kwa nini wanakupimia kitu ndogo hivi.
Ala, chairman. Mumeamua na kwanza watu wa diaspora wamesema hakuna kupiga kura. Mbona
Thank you for your faith.
Sasa hiyo
lakini kazi ni kazi.
The higher position next time, yeah, but I understand your position and I respect it.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions for you, and unajua hii inaitwa tackle. I'm here with tackle people when they come and we challenge them, and I hope you come back.
This is a tackle, real time.
Pole leo ni pole. First, I've listened to your interview and what you have presented. One of the things that I have a little bit of a challenge with is even when you look at the first term of the Jubilee government, they still had a lot of issues, especially dealing with public funds and the loans that they borrowed. That's one of the things that I want you to at least respond to. What responsibility do you, as part of the Jubilee then, do you own or do you owe to the Kenyan people explanation how that money was handled? And there was no checks and balances by the Parliament. One of your colleagues in the Senate, Senator Sakaja, the other day said that the Parliament and the county government are just simply appendages of the executive. They are not doing their job. That's one thing that I would like you to address. The other thing is one of your colleagues also had been on this show before, Honorable Gashagwa, and he actually apologized because of one of the laws that you people voted for. I don't know whether you voted. I don't want to put you in that position because I don't know whether you voted or not. The security bill that was very controversial, even up to date, we still see the repercussions of it, even now when people...
Yes.
Okay. That is Joel Rama, all the way from the United States of America. Good to see you, my brother. Vision of... okay. Punjua Njagi says, tell him why Somalia would not be a nation without the help of Kenya. Vision total from the UK. IB Talk tuned in from the United Kingdom. Great conversation to inform hustlers and tacklers. Well done and well explained. Dan Onduko, JBS is my women rep in GISHU, but we only see you on TVs. Okay. We have never seen you on ground. Iji Kapsoya, Munyaka, Kimumu, etc. Come to the ground and hear what the people are saying. Haya, mwambenu wapi atakuja, atatembea. Haya, bunge la mwenye nchi.
Pole bwana.
Mashilingi ilishuka.
Nikakata chini. So that's one of the things. Honorable Gashagwa came to the show and actually apologized to Kenya and say it was right for him to vote for that bill. I wonder what there are things that you as a member of parliament that you think even during the time when you say Jubilee government was working. There are things that you owe an apology to Kenyans and some things you think you'll do better the next time when you come back to Parliament. The other thing that I would like you to address, you guys have talked about Kenya Power, and something clicked on my mind and say, why? Because I believe all these committees or authorities are budgeted for, they are already in the budget. They have funding in the budget. Why do they also go back and charge extra money from Kenyans to run the same offices when they have already been budgeted for their salaries, office equipment and everything else? Why do they have to have extra money? Can you, as a member of parliament, corral your colleagues in parliament to pass legislation that forbids these authorities or committees or whatever they are called not to be charging Kenyans extra money for something that they have already been budgeted for? Unless they are not budgeted for, then we can understand that. Whether it's EPRA, whether it's the university one, any other body that is actually charging Kenyans extra money, why they already have money budgeted for their operations already in place. It's the same thing like IDC start charging people 100 shillings for registering you as a voter. They are already paid and budgeted for what they're supposed to do. Why do we have this thing happening, which I believe to some extent is illegal? Because if you have money budgeted for you to operate, why then do you have to go and charge Kenyans extra money? And I think they're using loopholes, either loopholes or something that we are getting used to. Is that something that you people can go back to parliament and enact a law forbidding them from doing that unless they come to parliament and seek permission? And if it's something that they need to do, it should be within a time frame or a time limit, not charging Kenyans money anyhow all the time. And these are some of the issues that I want our parliament to be very active. When it's issues of concern to Kenyans, I have not seen the parliament even calling or passing a motion to rebuke or to challenge some of the things that the executive is doing, because you still have the power as the parliament to put checks on the executive, and unfortunately it's not being utilized. So that is my challenge to you, and I hope I will see maybe something coming up soon. Hopefully you can do something.
All right. Asante sana chairman for your tackle. All right. I appreciate it. Don't sleep yet. Najua unalala na macho moja lakini usilale ngoja.
Maybe I can answer his before he goes to sleep.
Before you go to sleep, chairman.
Yeah. Okay, let me just respond to Joel from the diaspora. I think you've raised very fundamental points. We do agree that Parliament should actually be the ones who oversight government and create those checks and balances on government. The biggest challenge that has happened to us, I think, that has happened to us at the moment, is that because Parliament actually doesn't work through the floor of the House, it works through committees. And usually if a government wants to function, they have strategic persons from their teams to be in those committees to ensure that they are able to deliver what they promised to the Mwananchi. Yes, we've had some disappointments. I'm glad that Honorable Gachagua did apologize about the security bills.
Yeah,
I think people learned a lesson from that. I wasn't in Parliament at that time, but I think they did learn a lesson that it comes to bite you back at some point. I think all of us went into government or into Parliament from the Jubilee Party, believing in good faith that the manifesto would be delivered. And at the beginning, there was some delivery beginning. And one of the ones I do apologize about, and I take responsibility for it, is when I was chairperson of the Committee on Delegated Legislation, the Minister of Finance, Ukuru Yatian, came to the committee and requested that they wanted to increase the debt ceiling to 9 trillion. And of course, everybody refused. All MPs were against it. But he presented a very good argument before the committee. And he said, currently, Kenya is borrowing domestic loans at about 9% interest. He said, if we borrow internationally from the international financial institutions, we will end up paying 1%, which makes a lot of sense. So he was saying, help me retire the expensive loans and then be able to take cheaper loans for the country, which in the long run will help Kenya be able to repay its loans faster. It made a lot of sense. And also, when the government stops borrowing from the local market, what it does is that it opens up money. It opens up money so that the ordinary citizen can borrow money. The small micro enterprises can borrow. Right now, the bank won't even look at someone like me, because if they can borrow from a government, why should they lend to a small person like me who might likely default? So I remember I ended up supporting the increase of the debt ceiling to 9 trillion. Reason being, for Kenya to borrow from the international financial markets, it had to improve its credit rating. And the only way to improve your credit rating is increasing your debt ceiling. And Ekuru Etian promised that within 3 months, he would submit a report to tell us how many domestic loans he has retired and which banks they were they were borrowing from before, and what loans they have now taken at what interest rate and agreement and period from the international financial institutions. Unfortunately, I was fired from the Committee of Delegated Legislation before I could get that report back from Mukuru at Yatiani. But I know when he wanted recently to increase it to 12 trillion, I was one of the objectors on the floor of the House that no, he must first report on the 9 trillion shillings. Now, the challenge we have is because we are in a very awkward situation in Kenya. Previously, we had a very strong opposition under Raila Odinga. He kept the government in check, so that even if the government misbehaved, we had an opposition. At the moment, we have no opposition. We actually have an opposition that choruses whatever the government says. So on this issue of the debts or any other item in Parliament, it is impossible for anything to happen because Jubilee has its numbers that have remained with them, and then it has the opposition. And remember, it's not just the ODM. It has Wiper, it has ANC, it has Ford Kenya, and so on. So basically, the entire NASA brigade has become part of government. Raila Odinga is like a co-president. So, and that's why many of us kept saying, we told Raila Odinga, you are amazing as an opposition leader. You remember when there was calling out NYS, it was Raila Odinga. Calling out the issues of SGR, it was Raila Odinga. Calling out on issue of Eurobond, it was Raila Odinga. So what happened to Raila to that role that he played. And so we are in a bad place. Hence the reason why many of us have said it is important for every country to have a strong opposition. In fact, we are advocating that the leader of opposition be strengthened, provided with resources, so that they can even have shadow cabinet ministers that are resourced and provided with researchers by Parliament itself. As
Is that not what was in BBI?
BBI was giving them a position. Okay. So the opposition was almost made that they would have a prime minister position. Okay. So that doesn't help. You have to make a strong leader of minority, or leader of opposition. If that is done, then what will happen is we will be in a better place. But we learn from our mistakes, and going forward we should do that. You're very right.
So that's what you want to apologize for?
Yes, I want to apologize about that, because I did believe in good faith that they wanted to function. Now I know better. If you look, KPLC, you're right. We apportion money, but then again, he said exactly my point, which is, why is it that they are making losses and need money when they charge us to the penny? And hence the reason, but this is a bigger decision. I think the opportunity for the president has appointed a task force. That's an opportunity to interrogate and raise these questions. And I can promise you that I definitely be one of the people appearing before the task force, but I will make sure that Cherotich is with me so she can back me up on research on that particular thing. We've seen that the opposition and even various devolution has been greatly weakened, especially in Nairobi County. And I think Honorable Sakaja is very right in that. Once they got rid of the governor who was elected by the people, even if you didn't like him, he was elected by the people. And to take away the powers from the people who were elected and to a person who is appointed means whatever actions are being undertaken at the Nairobi Metropolitan Services is for the whims of the executive, not necessarily what the people want. Because if you're an elected leader, in order to be re-elected, you have to listen to the people. We do have that challenge. I think there was another question where somebody said that I do not like UK. I don't think it's a matter of like.
So sijui kama Joel, azo kwa salama.
I'm still here.
Okay.
So you
I think he has answered yes.
Yes. And then I think someone mentioned about that disrespectful to the president. I don't think I am being disrespectful. I am being factual. Sometimes the facts are painful and may not be what you like, but it's a fact. The fact is he said those words. And in any diplomatic language, they are pedestrian. So I don't think I have anything to apologize about that. And even if he asked me today, I would tell him. It is not disrespect. I am calling him out. And remember, I am an elected member of parliament, and my first job is to oversight the executive. So it is me to point out when the executive is going wrong. Pointing it out is even sufficient. I think, and that takes me to what one of my electorate members did speak, the gentleman who said he would like to see me on the ground. It has not been an easy year, the last 1.5 years. One, we've not been able to have political functions as in the big ways that we wanted until recently because of Corona. I know that people like the Deputy President is lucky that he can go out to the public, but they won't do anything to him. But if I did try to do the same thing, I shall definitely be locked up. And I'm definitely on the wanted list. So I've been very careful. If you notice, all my functions for my empowerment programs that I've been undertaking, I have held them at Kapsoya, at the Deputy County Commissioner's office, because that is where I was given permission to hold all my functions. But my work has never stopped. You will notice that the hydraulic brick making machines that we gave out in Tarbo and Kapseret, we had 30 groups benefited from sewing machines. 20 groups benefited from portable electric sewing machines. More than 40 groups of youths benefited from welding machines. Border groups, various groups others got 100 motorbikes. It's distributed to various circles. We set up border spares repair shop for some of the groups so that they can be able to give themselves business by sending their motorbikes to be repaired and spare parts bought from a shop that they own themselves. We have been able to do that. We did give funding to Kapseret border riders, I think Cheptiret border riders, Ainapkoi border riders, and Tarbo constituency. And in Juakali, we were able to do that. We did speak to many border riders told us they don't own the motorbike. So we told them, if you get yourself into a self-help group as a stage, then what we do is we can give you a grant. We give you 3 motorbikes. You ride them, but whoever is riding them puts money aside daily. And then that amount of money can be used to buy for another person a motorbike. Because we realized that most of the motorbikes were owned by the chief or the local teacher and so on. So we were trying to make them that they be able to get the full benefit of the work that they do. That has not stopped. Over 800 motorbikes were given, and I think if you look at the pictures on Facebook, you'll see me doing them. More than 225 groups have received the empowerment, the women empowerment funds in value addition. We've given out more than 3,000 bursaries across the county, more than 130 wheelchairs for PWDs. And remember, all these are grants. They don't pay back, but we ensure that they have changed their lives. It's supposed to change their lives. This is actually what the bottom-up economic model is all about. Because once these people become independent, then they're able to take care of their families, and then it means they do not live in abject poverty. I think the total that we have given out in the last my term up to now, we have not done for the final year. We're in the second quarter. We have not done the first quarter of this financial year, but it comes to about 160 million worth of various programs that will be involved in. But in the last 1.5 years, up to now, since last year, March, up to now, we have all the distributions have been done from one central place. And we've had public functions there, but we're only allowed to be there for 1.5 hours, and we're not allowed to have more there. Water tanks to schools. We've issued out 180 water tanks to primary schools where the children used to carry jerrycans to school. The small little 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds. So now they don't have to do that, and we shall continue to do that.
I should go back to school. We used to carry a lot of jerrycans.
We used to carry jerrycans, yes. I know one of the ones that touched me is there was this school in Segero Barsombe ward. The teacher came and told me that he went to that school, and in 1970, see, it was set up in 1970, they have never had a water tank.
Wow.
And last year we were able to give them their first ever water tank. We are teaching them water harvesting, and they've been able to be quite independent on that. So yes, we have been dealing the affirmative action programs. You may not see me holding big functions, but now thank God that the curfew is over, and I think the COVID rules have been relaxed. And you will be seeing us on the ground, and most importantly, because right now we want to focus on voter registration, which is very important if we have to be in charge of the destiny of our country. Someone from, I think, Turkana, where you said that they feel like left out and say that, Lord was your Kenya. But I must say this has changed significantly through devolution. That's why we must strengthen devolution. Today, I remember there was a time when you'd go to Turkana County and nothing was happening there. But today, they have their own county government. They have their own governor. They have their own MCAs. They have their own resources to undertake development there. In fact, all we need to do is improve what is sent out to the counties. And you don't improve what you send out to the counties by saying 35% the way BBI was trying to propose. I tell people that 35% of zero is zero. So what we should be telling ourselves, it's 35% of what? What is sent to the counties currently is 15% of the total revenue collected. So what we should be aiming at is improving the amount of revenue collected or taxes generally in the country, in order so that even if we say it's 10%, it is still a significant amount. Because if it's 35%,
and it's of little,
35% of 100,000 is less than 10% of, is less than 10% of 2 million shillings, for example. So we need to increase the base. And how do we do it? By improving the economy. How do we improve economy? Is by undertaking something like the bottom-up economic model, because it increases the tax base and therefore increases the revenue, which means the amount going to the counties will increase. And therefore, I believe in devolution. It is an issue that should be promoted. I think a Bet from Kapenguria has talked about. He's saying what will happen now that there is a move to endorse certain leaders and so on. Let me explain to you something. It's a Bet. Don't worry what these 5 or 6 people are trying to say they'll come together. It counts for nothing. Any political leader who wants to lead this country should enter into an alliance with the Wananchi, not with 5 rich people, because those ones don't count. They must enter into an alliance with the people. And that is why when you look at our alliance, the United Democratic Alliance, one, we already have a candidate. For them, they are still going around trying to say, let's agree on one of us among the 5 of us. So they are still looking for a candidate. We already have a candidate, Dr. William Ruto. And we not only have a candidate, but we have a candidate with a track record. We know that when he was Eldoret North MP, he was the best performing. When he was the Minister of Education and Minister of Agriculture, he was recognized as the best performing minister by President Kibaki. He has a track record and he is known. 3, he has a plan. We as an alliance have a plan. And we have the bottom-up economic model. And most importantly, we already have a vehicle and a political movement for going into 2022. We have the United Democratic Alliance, or what they call the Hustler movement. For them, they are still trying to come together. First there was NASA, then there was CORD, and then they now have OCA, the One Kenya Alliance. And at the same time, they are still trying, and then they tried BBI. So they've been trying various vehicles. They still don't have a vehicle, and we are actually 9 months to elections. So I think you can obviously tell who is the more organized, formidable force. So don't worry. I know that recently, Wetangula, Gideon Moi, who are the others? There were about 5 of the presidential aspirants, Kalonzo Musyoka and so on. I think made a very. I mean, I was shocked. It was. I think it was humiliating for them that they had to go and appear before an interview before 5 gentlemen whose only qualification is their bank accounts. Because they are big business owners, they said, we'll interview you and decide who is the best for president and support you. If you have to go to an interview, do what Dr. William Ruto is doing. Go to the ground and be interviewed by Wananchi at Kongowea Market. Go to Rabai, go down and to Kwale and listen to, go be interviewed by Wananchi. Go talk to them, go ask them to persuade them that you have an agenda for them. Let them listen to you and decide whether you have the right agenda or not, so they can decide whether to vote you in or not vote you. But you can't subject yourself in a boardroom in a posh hotel, Safari Park, to be interrogated by people who are not even elected. I'd rather than you come to parliament and be interrogated by people who've been elected, or go on the ground and be interviewed then by the members of the county assembly, because at least they are elected. Yes, but you cannot be. In fact, I was thinking to myself, are they interviewing you to be CEO of their companies, or are they interviewing you to be CEO of Kenya? Because if you want to be CEO of Kenya, the only way it can happen is by going to the Wananchi, persuading them, and you let them go and vote in secret apportionment. I guess they decided they wanted a middle ground, because also the court doesn't want to have a diplomatic role or trigger an act of war. So I think that's why they went in that way. But I do hope that Kenya will kick in its diplomatic negotiations to be able to deal with this. I hope that I have dealt with every question. I used to be a teacher, so I tend to talk too much. If I forgot something, do let me know.
All right, okay. Now, I want us to go to the final part of this, and that is the bottom-up economics. And it's coming at a point where Kenyan politics has been almost described as politics of sloganeering. You know, 2013 we had a conversation around the economy. In 2017 as well, when they were seeking for a second term, we had conversations of laptops and all these things. The stories were coming, and so far we feel that we are a nation of sloganeering. You know, we'll come and do this. ODM, the other time NASA was coming, NASA. You know, Jubilee as well, ilikuwa na mambo yao. But things have changed a bit. Now we are talking about the economy. It's different now. It's not about NASA. It's not about the Jubilee, which was about Kimondo Mokoroki. These are the things na Muganga. Now we are having a conversation around the issues that concern Kenyans. For the first time in the history of Kenyan politics, we are having a conversation around Kenyans. I would not want to ask you about any other model because I don't think you are privy with that. I also tried to invite. I invited Migori Women Rep. She's out of town. She's a friend of the show, but she says she's out of town. I tried reaching out to GLADYS Wanga. Yesterday I could not find her. She's not been responsive because I wanted us to have a balanced debate on this side. But at their own time, they will also come and tell us about their model. But for now, bottom-up economics, is it just one another slogan to excite Kenyans, or it has some value in it, and is it attainable?
I think Kenya has matured a lot from 2013 greatly, because right now Kenyans have realized the biggest issue that ails them is the economy. Kenyans don't no longer worry that they want to have their tribal chief or their tribesman in office. They want to know, will it change how I live in my pocket at the end of the day? Will I be able to send my children to school? Will I be able to feed my children? Will I be able to be able to pay for medical costs should, God forbid, somebody in my family falls ill? Those are the things that Kenyans are interested in. And politicians have now learned. Kenyans have matured over time. And that's why I'm happy that this time people are talking about the economy. It started slightly in 2013, where the electrification, the setting up of the TVETs, the roads and so on, was to create a foundation for the building of an economy and for manufacturing, right? And so that was the basis. We were supposed to move into the second term to move into the big four. As we said, that did not happen. Hence the reason why the new political leaders want to create hope. And I can talk about the one I know, which is Dr. William Ruto, which is one of the political aspirants, has mooted the bottom-up economic model. And we've listened to him many times in the way he has presented it. And like I said, him talking about the bottom-up economic model has caused his opponents to also begin to talk about the economy. And therefore, I'll be happy that you give the opportunity to these other aspirants for presidential seat to come and talk about their economic model. I'm happy that they are now talking about the economic model, each of them. But let me tell you about the bottom-up economic model, which I'm privy to and understand. The first question Kenyans would be asking, who are these people at the bottom? And this, I'm going to give you figures from the Kenya Bureau of Statistics. So these are not GLADYS's figures. These are figures from a government institution that is mandated to do that. The Kenya Bureau of Statistics says that 1.5 million Kenyans are outrightly unemployed. It then says another 3.7 million Kenyans are underemployed. Underemployed means you're a boda rider and you have a degree. Or recently we saw a story of a boda rider who is studying for his PhD. That means he's underemployed. His skills and his education doesn't matching. Then it goes on to say, the same Bureau of Statistics figure says there's another 10 million Kenyans whom they call unlicensed traders. So these are like, if you drive on the road now, where you find somebody with mkokoteni selling bananas, the street vendors, the people who cook food on the road by the roadside. If you go to Kibra, you'll find somebody frying fish, making mandazi, and so on. And they make a living from that. So the mama mboga who has a small kibanda by the roadside, or the hawkers who walk around the roads hawking their wares and so on. And these are people that exist. I buy my bananas from James GISHU Road on a guy on Mkokoteni all the time. He has the best bananas. So each of us, from at one point, in fact, almost on a daily basis,
We interact with those
economics. In fact, if you send someone from your house, even if you don't buy yourself, they'll go and buy from the vendor on the roadside. When you send them to buy some tomatoes. So that is the reality. So, and then there is another 2.5 million households, again, who live in abject poverty and are under threat of starvation at any one time. These are people who, for example, if you watch people walking from the informal settlements, like Kibera, you're walking to industrial area. They go to industrial area, they hopefully will get a job, and 100 bob or 200 shillings. They will come home in the evening. They will buy a scoop of oil, a scoop of unga, and a bunch of sukuma wiki, and that day they will eat. And tomorrow they'll wake up again and go. These are the young ladies I see. They go from house to house washing clothes. Then they get paid a daily wage. That day they will eat. Tomorrow they hope, maybe tomorrow you won't have any laundry to give them. So those are the people with the 2.5 million households. There is in other areas, so I've just to give an example of the ones in the city, but in other areas, it's these people who depend on rainfall. They might have food or they might not have food. Currently, the Kenyan parliament puts aside 15 billion shillings every year for those people who may face starvation or not be able to have any food at all. Right now, Kilifi counties, Garissa, Wajir, and areas like
drought,
that are currently facing drought. See, those are homesteads that, those are people who can be today eating and tomorrow they might just die of hunger.
Yes.
So those are the people at the bottom. I've listed for you 1.4 million, 3.7 million, another 10 million and 2.5 households. So when we talk about people being at the bottom, it's a reality.
There are people at the bottom.
Fact, there are people at the bottom. Our economic structure, and is the economic structure of most countries, is that it's a pyramid. So you have a few rich people at the top, and these people that I've said are at the bottom. I've told you who they are. And that is why Dr. William Ruto's economic model is that let us focus all our policies, all our legislation, and all our resources on how to target these people at the bottom of the pyramid.
Men and women at the bottom.
Yeah. So they exist. He's not making it up. And the bottom-up economic model is a model that has been studied for years, more than 15 years, by the top business schools across the world. And many countries are beginning to apply it, except that the bottom-up economic model, the way you apply it in America is not the same way you apply it in Kenya, but it's still the same model, except that the application is different. Similarly, in Kenya, the way you will apply it in Uasin Gishu is not the same way you will apply it in central Kenya or in the coast region.
The dynamics are different.
The dynamics are different, but it's still the same model. Hence the reason why you've seen that the deputy president has been going around meeting
the charters.
Has sending charters and having discussions with various economic blocs across the country to come up with ways in which they will implement the bottom-up economic model in their region. Like I said, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It is going to be applied differently in different areas, but it's the same model. Now let's go. How is this? How do we target these people at the bottom? I've given you the example of 10 million people whom are called unlicensed by the Bureau of Standards, but they are actually people who get involved in legitimate trade, the mama bogas, the hawkers, and so on. How are these people helped? One is we need to have a proper legal regime so that we make sure we decriminalize their activities. So this issue of the hawkers being chased around town by county askaris is not acceptable. That is criminalizing somebody's trade. These people are simply trying to earn a living. They are not criminals. They are not a danger to society. In fact, society needs them. The fact that they are selling on the street means there is a market
There's
for
a
it.
need for it, yes.
So let us streamline this legal regime. Number two, let us create a proper infrastructure for them. Let's get them a safe and secure place to sell their wares. So if you don't want them walking around the street, let's put them in a strategic place where it is secure and where people are able to access so that they can be able to sell their wares and hawk their wares in a safe environment. And with dignity. Because like we say, when we say kazi ni kazi, is that you should not look down upon any type of work. That means if we create for them a proper environment, and I always use this example because it's one that everybody resonates with. Maybe you don't remember, but I remember many years ago when I was at university, when we wanted to buy anything from the Maasai market, basically they were hawking their wares. Sometimes they would be near some drainage at Globe Cinema roundabout once in a while. Sometimes you couldn't find them. So the Maasai market didn't exist. We didn't know they would be hawking on the streets. They would be chased by the county askaris. Sometimes they would even confiscate their wares. These people couldn't make a living. But today, look at the way it's been organized. The Maasai market is a tourist attraction in Kenya. Yeah. Today, any tourist coming into Kenya, and every travel agent will tell you, they will tell the tourist, the Maasai market today is at Yaya Center. Tomorrow it's going to be at the parking lot at the Locots. On this day, it's going to be on Kijabe Street. And on the other day, it's going to be at Two Rivers and so on. What they've done is created for them, these hawkers have now got a safe, secure, and decent place to undertake their trade at an affordable rate. Because those, they get a minimal charge by those malls. It's very simple. You can do that. Today, you travel to any country. If you go to New York or London, people have mkokoteni. They're called food trucks. So it sounds good, but it's actually a mkokoteni.
So you should rename them here. We should baptize and call them food trucks. Okay.
Yes, but even if we call it mkokoteni trucks, provided we acknowledge them and make sure that we make it secure and safer and within the regulations, there is no problem. So that is what the bottom-up economic model means. We create a good environment, which is the legal regime. I've told you about the infrastructure, and the other one is financial support, or what the Deputy President calls a good financial ecosystem. That's what he says. In simple words, what it is that a lot of these traders, for them to have money to buy the wares that they need or capital to put into their small businesses, they go to Shylocks. They are saying that if the Shylock, if you borrow 5,000 shillings from him today to be able to buy the stock for today and sell, in the evening you pay him back 5,000 plus another 500 shillings. That is how many percent? It's 1,000% of interest. So ultimately, that person, instead of feeding his family with whatever work they are doing, they end up feeding the Shylock. If you look at Fuliza and all these other financial, what they call financial techs, fintechs, what happens is they are earning 2 billion daily. 2 billion shillings is transaction
from Kenyans.
That is almost the amount that Kenya collects in taxes, by the way. Yeah? At least when I was in government, that was the daily collection tax rate in the years 2010 and so on. That was it might have increased now, I don't know. But it just tells you how significant it is. Now, you ask yourself, that's not an affordable loan. Again, they are paying almost, I think, if you
20%.
I listened to the Deputy President say that it came to 2,000% per year in interest. Yet, the banks are doing it at 15%, and they're using the money of wananchi that they've collected, not their own money. So you can see these 10 million people who are unlicensed and actually are self-employed. We should be encouraging them to be able to do their work. What do? Let us make sure they have access to financial support or a place where they can borrow at affordable rates. Then these people won't even require jobs. They will be able to feed their families and their jobs will have dignity. Right now, the job has no dignity because it is a zero-sum game. You are suffering and working for some big companies. And by the way, the people who lend, these legitimized Shylocks, in fact, Fuliza is legitimized Shylocks. They are being allowed to operate. And they are huge companies, and we know them. And they make a lot of money. But who benefits? Very few people. Because it's a couple of families that own those businesses. It's not everybody. So why don't we make sure that these 10 million... So our interest is not the 3-4 big companies. That's the trickle-down economic model. The bottom-up economic model is when you target all these people. In fact, when I calculate all these numbers, it comes to 15 million. Because the less than 3 million people are formally employed by government. Everybody else is in the informal sector. So let's focus. If this informal sector works and they make money, they will become taxpayers, which means we'll increase that tax base we are talking about.
More people will be able
which
to pay
means that
taxes.
15% we send to counties will significantly increase, and now people in Turkana will not be saying, Lord Wasio Kenya. So it is actually, it is capable of being implemented. And of course, the other way is to ensure that we stop losing money through corruption.
Okay.
And corruption can be dealt with very simply, not by arresting people. If you change the procurement laws, you lock out spaces for corruption. Currently, our procurement laws lend themselves for space for corruption.
It's porous.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think that's really that's an eye opener on the bottom up. So it is attainable. As
It
you
is
said.
attainable.
Okay. There's a very interesting question for you here from Abdul Harim Jamal. What is ASLA position in the criminalization of medical and recreational marijuana? Bottom up.
Yeah. No, I don't think I can only speak to what I belong to a team, and I can only speak to what the team has agreed as a standard for them. I think medical marijuana is something that has been spoken about in other countries. This country hasn't had a serious conversation about it. I know that it was raised by the late MP for Kibra, Ken Okoth, having suffered himself and about it. But that's so it's not a conversation that we've had under the bottom-up economic model. I think that is something that would be dealt with actually purely by the health sector.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's the answer for you. It's been a pleasure having you, madam.
Yes. Do you have a minute for me to say something?
Yes. You have to give your tackle of the day. You can't go with giving us your tackle of the day.
I just one of the topics that I'm very passionate about is use of pesticides in Kenya.
Okay.
I did file a petition before Parliament. Parliament has completed it and sent its report to the Ministry of Health and to the Kenya Pesticide Control Board. I think it's important for Kenyans to know, and you'll be hearing me speaking a lot about it, is that there is pesticides. There's 262 types of pesticides that have been banned in Europe and the US because they cause cancer, kidney problems, and other neurological and non-communicable diseases. We've seen the prevalence of cancer has increased in Kenya. And you'll see that in counties which has the highest use of pesticides actually has the highest prevalence of cancer. We are asking the Pesticide Control Board that you know and have the information that those particular pesticides have been banned in Europe and America. In Europe and America, people who have been diagnosed with cancer having used those pesticides have been paid to the tune of billions of dollars in compensation. But yet, we are still allowing it to be used in Kenya. The laws in Europe and the US say that those companies are allowed to manufacture those banned pesticides, provided they don't use them in their own country, but send them to a country that is foolish enough
to accept them.
And the people who are responsible is the Pesticide Control Board of Kenya, who have failed us in making sure that those pesticides are removed off. My campaign continues on that point. In fact, recently, the UK Sunday Times and Radio Deutsche Welle in Germany are going to help me promote to put pressure on those European countries to stop sending those banned pesticides into Kenya. Farmers have more than 11,000 tons per year of other safe pesticides that they can use. And there's also the pyrethrum-based pesticides that they can use. And Kenya can grow pyrethrum. So again, hopefully part of the bottom-up economic model is to revive that sector. We'll be killing two birds with one stone, creating employment. And the second way is that we shall be making sure that we have a healthier nation.
Safe pesticide.
Thank you.
All right. You have any tackle of the day? You want to tackle anyone, anybody, anywhere?
I think I've tackled enough people now. I might have some enemies by the time I walk out of here. I always tell people cowards die many times. Yeah, but I plan to die once, so I'm not afraid to say.
We hope you don't die.
My mind.
People are saying you should be the president of this country. I think the only thing we can pray is that you don't die. You don't die early enough. You die only when it's necessary. It's been a pleasure having you. Wishing you to have you again. So I'll continue having this discourse. And I believe that one conversation at a time changes a nation. So let's keep it going. The guys who have been on YouTube, Twitter, and as well Facebook, it's always a pleasure to have you. It's always a pleasure to have you. And I want to repeat that without you, the tackle could never be. We are here because you are. We really want to appreciate you. You are the biggest example of Ubuntu, standing with us all the way. And I want to congratulate as well the anniversary followers. There are some guys I'm seeing our pages giving them anniversary badges. Congratulations, the guys who have been sticking with us for a whole year. And we really hope to continue having us in the second year. We've turned one officially. So
ooh, congratulations.
Returning another time. Returning again. We want to see you again in the next year. It's been a pleasure having you. As we also work on ensuring that we're also able to improve and bring you more quality production in the coming months, so that we can continue having this conversation in the biggest way possible. And to repeat that the tackle is an open platform for every leader. So keep pushing your leaders to come here and have a conversation with you, because we are not biased. We don't take sides and we don't trade with government. So government cannot until Monday on the Common Sense edition. It's been a pleasure having you. Enjoy weekend and take care. Kimefunguliwa, so tuonane. Uwezi jua, unaweza niona umumu. Na pia kama uja recharge, after recharge dawa pa Peptang, uweza kurecharge na kuwa shwari kabisa katika weekend yako. Until Monday, take care and enjoy yourself. Bye bye. This is a tackle and it ends now.